if they're with somebody else but still think about you, you could be caught in this kind of confusing and overwhelming place where on one hand, I mean, let's be honest, it's never great when they're with somebody else, especially if you want to be with them, if you want to make things work out, if you want to, get back together with them or start that relationship or something. It's never a great place to see them with someone else. But on the other hand, you do have the positive side of things, which is that they think about you. They maybe miss you in some regards. Maybe they talk to you often or engage with you in one form or other. And this can be really confusing. I wouldn't fault you if you felt overwhelmed or if your emotions seem to tip back and forth on a day-to-day basis. Sometimes feeling completely depressed, hopeless, other times feeling, hey, maybe I have a shot here. But the thing is, you have to understand that this isn't going to just sort itself out if you just sit back and wait, if you just give them space to make a choice or something like that. You're in a situation right now where what's going to determine how this sorts out is in a very large part due to what you put into it. It's like if you have some sort of recipe that you're cooking, some sort of, soup or something like that, and you taste it and it's not quite right. There's something's not working out. I mean, I guess to a certain degree, maybe certain flavors could start to come out or pronounce themselves a little bit more if you just give it a little bit more time to cook. But really, what you're probably going to have to do is add something, put something into it. A few more spices, some salt, maybe some vegetables, onion, some other ingredients, I don't know. And that seems fairly obvious when it comes to cooking, but so often it doesn't seem obvious when it comes to relationships, when it comes to our personal interactions that we have with people. So many times I'll see people who don't want to try to put something into it, don't want to try to tilt things in their favor. They feel as if they're a victim of what's happening, as if they're a victim of this circumstance. Like, hey, look at me, my life is so hard because sometimes my ex thinks about me and misses me and wants to get back together, and sometimes they don't because they still stay in this relationship with this other person. They won't actually pull the plug. They won't actually end the relationship. They won't actually do anything to get us back together. But you see where they're at is they're not going to take that leap of faith and say, okay, I'm going to end things with this other person and get back together with you until they feel very secure that that's the right choice for them to make. And is that fair? I mean, I don't know. We can talk about philosophically whether that is fair or not, but rubber meets the road on a practical level. They're just not going to do it. They're not going to realistically make that choice until they feel secure that it's in their best interest to do so, which is where the whole cooking thing comes into play. You got to add those ingredients to make them really feel that this is in their best interest and that this is the right thing for them to do. So how do you do that? There are a couple of different tools you have at your disposal, but this is where you have to be able to discern which tool to use at the right time. So sometimes you may need to focus on strengthening the connection that you have with them. If things are unstable and rocky between the two of you, specifically in terms of how they are experiencing you, how you're showing up for them, then you're going to need to normalize that out. You're going to need to show them that you are a reliable person on an emotional level. Whether or not you need to be reliable in other areas or not, hey, that's a conversation for a different time. But at least on an emotional level, they need to be able to turn towards you and know that they're going to get some degree of consistency, whether that's support, whether that is understanding or empathy or something like that. But they need to be able to get consistency and know that they're not just going to, have to walk on eggshells We're not sure if they're going to get, Dr. Jekyll or Mr. Hyde or whatever. And I'm not saying that necessarily is going to come across in that strong of a polarized kind of way. If you are having a hard time with this, sometimes feeling optimistic, sometimes feeling depressed and hopeless, that's going to come across in how you show up. So what you need to do is you need to stop looking outside of yourself for validation. Stop looking outside of yourself to tell you how you should feel, and start looking within and taking the initiative on how you are setting the tone for these dynamics. It's not to say that you can't be affected by things. Obviously you will be because you're human, but you have to know that you're more than just what happens to you. And you have to be willing to steer the boat, or at least try to. You're not going to be able to call all the shots and make things happen exactly the way that you want to, probably. But if you take the initiative with things, and if you strive to move things in the direction that you want to, that's going to help immensely. The next tool that you want to use too is going to be, knowing when to put in some pressure on the situation. Like, let's say you have it well established that the two of you get along great, the two of you have a good connection, but they're still not making that decision. What you have to do is you have to put some pressure on the situation and let them know that this isn't going to be something that just goes on indefinitely. This isn't something that you can just hang on to indefinitely while they're still with this other person for, God knows how long. It's not fair for you, obviously. And if you really think about it, it's not fair for them either. It's not fair for this other person that they're in a relationship with as well. It's really not fair for anybody because, you obviously want to be 100% with them. The person that they're with, if they know that they're talking with you, probably doesn't like that. If they don't know it, they probably wouldn't like it if they found out. They want someone who's going to be 100% committed to them. And your ex probably feels guilty about all this. They probably want someone that they can be 100% with as well, too. And so it's really not fair to have this whole situation continue on. So if you have it well established that you do have a good connection with one another, don't do this if it's not established yet, but you can leverage that foundation that you have by just, by letting them know in one form or other that this can't continue on indefinitely. I can't do this indefinitely. It's not fair for any of us. I understand that this is tough. I understand that you have a hard time making this decision. I can relate to that, and I can see how this isn't an easy one to make. But this isn't something that I can continue to do forever. And I'm going to need you to make a decision here at some point. And you're not like really dropping an ultimatum here. You're just letting them know that actions have consequences. It's important that you do this if you don't want the situation to continue, which obviously you don't. So let's kind of go back over this again. And I'll use an example from a client. I was working with this guy not too long ago. And he was he had an ex who, he really liked her and everything. And they just somehow drifted apart over the years. And, they got back in touch somehow. And started talking, and he realized he still liked her. And then what happened was, it turned out that she was in a relationship with somebody else. Now, this relationship that she was in with somebody else wasn't that great. It was more just like a relationship of convenience. She really wanted to be with this other guy, my client, but she couldn't bring herself to end that other relationship. There was so much guilt about letting down the other guy, about how he would respond and everything like that, that she just, put it off. And so she was still in this relationship with this other guy. She was talking to my client. There's a whole long distance component in this as well too. So, they were talking online often, joking around, flirting. When they'd see each other, there was, even more than flirting, if you know what I mean. This really wasn't fair for anybody. Now, my client obviously had an emotional foundation that he could build off of. So, that first part that we talked about, check. And so I had him leverage it. I had him do a lot of the things that we just talked about. I had him really make her take ownership of this situation so that she couldn't just blame fate or God or anything like that, but that she had to say, okay, this is me choosing to not be with the man that I really want to be with, and choosing to marry someone that I don't want. They were about to get married, get engaged and all that, and to get married to someone that I don't really feel anything for. Is this something that I can really follow through with? And once my client started putting on the weight of that responsibility on her, there was this time when he was doing that. The results weren't showing. I said, hey, it's okay. Just let it happen. Let her carry that weight. Because, like we've talked about before, we're not going to be able to see everything in real time as it happens. Can that happen sometimes? Sure. But oftentimes people need to take something in, process it, let it weigh on them for a period of time, and then it influences their actions. The whole invisible process that we've talked about in previous videos. But eventually she broke. She said, I can't do this. I'm just going to accidentally miss my visa interview or whatever it was that would allow her to marry the other guy, get the appropriate paperwork or whatever. And she did. She came out, told the other guy about it. There was a whole big drama that unfolded from that. And then, next time I talked to my client, her and his ex were back together. They were living in a place together, and they'd been together for, at that point, I think it was a couple weeks. That's how you got to do it. That's how you got to do it. If your ex is with somebody else, but they still think about you, they still miss you, they still have this connection with you, you have to stack it up so that they feel an incentive to actually make a decision. And if you prep the emotional foundation ahead of time, they're very likely to make that decision in your favor. Okay, so a lot of this is based on emotional connection. What I really want you to do next is to check out this video right up here on how to connect emotionally with your ex. It'll help you to learn more about all this stuff that we're talking about, and it'll help you to set things up in your favor moving forward. Take care, and I'll see you over there.